to discuss this. Welcome to Graham Davidson, Emeritus Professor of History at Monash University, and John Vaughan, vexillographer, flag designer and historian. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Kate.
So I'll start with you if I could, Graham. What did you think as you saw the images of Sunday's rallies across the country and the way the flag was used, what it was saying in that moment?
Well, it was the culmination of something that I've kind of observing over many years now, of the gradual change in the way in which we use and appropriate the flag. I think in some ways Australians have developed a kind of schizoid attitude to the flag. On the one hand, it's seen as a sacred object. It symbolises the nation and it can evoke very strong feelings. And on the other hand, of course, it's more and more turned into a logo that we use on everything from, stubby holders. It's turned into T-shirts, bikinis, a whole range of commercial uses of the flag. And that seems to me to be a characteristic of the last, 20 or 30 years, really. And
is it also a weapon? A multicultural group said that the flag should never, ever be weaponised. Did you think it was weaponised on the weekend?
Well, I certainly thought, once you begin to brandish the flag, it's tacitly being used as I suppose, what it's really, the message I think it's conveying is this is my flag, and it's not yours. In that sense, I think it can be exclusionary. Whether you describe it as a weapon, I'm not sure.
Well, it's interesting because is it not, with so many people marching together, how do we know that that's the interpretation? It's not, this is our flag, let's all be, unified. Is it different in something like that than Australia Day?
Well, I think it's all the context always matters, and I think in this instance it's a context in which, of course, at the weekend there were rival marches, and they were using different flags. So, in many respects, I think that in the minds of some people, the fact that pro-Palestinian people were flying a Palestinian flag rather crystallised the sense that they wanted to assert themselves as Australians as distinct from that. So in many respects, I think the one was playing against the other. There's been shifting attitudes towards the flag. I mean, to some extent, what we were seeing is very reminiscent of the anti-lockdown protests that we saw a few years ago, when again, actually a mixture of flags. They often used the Eureka flag, the Australian flag, the boxing kangaroo flag, were all flown, but they were gestures of protest against what people thought was somehow awry and unfamiliar to them in the current situation.
And as you say, context is everything, because if the context is Anzac Day, that's different, right?
Yes, that's right. And of course, it's very interesting to think back right to the beginnings of the Commonwealth. There was an emphasis originally on the flag. The flag belonged on the top of a flagpole. It was an object of veneration. It was not something that you wore, something that you appropriated to yourself. It was something that was an object of aspiration, a set of ideals. Now I think we've changed that in a lot of ways. Charles Bean, who was the great historian of the Anzacs, actually emphasised that the original Anzacs were very reticent. They didn't like flag waving. They didn't like jingoistic display. They thought of themselves as people who would be known by their actions rather than by gestures of that kind. But of course, we're now living in an age of television news, and to some extent, what goes on at the weekends is not done just for the purpose of the people who are around at the time. It's also done to create photo opportunities and to get gestures and dramatic action on the evening news.
Interesting to think of that idea of jingoism and the way that has sort of changed over time as well, and what's appropriate in our relationship with the flag. It shows that change over history, and it could be a good time to go right back to the beginning. If I could turn to you, John Vaughan, the flag's design was chosen out of a competition, wasn't it? Tell me the story back in 1901.
Well, it was an exciting time, Kate, because there was a fervent belief that the separate crown colonies, the 6 colonies of Australia, should join together and federate to become the Australian nation. And that happened, of course, in 1901. And when that happened, there was a need to have a national symbol. That was foreseen in 1900, and there was a Herald Federal Flag competition that was in Victoria, and that was quite successful, and it came up with a reasonable design, but that just whetted the appetite, and the Review of Reviews for Australasia, a magazine that came out every month, actually got really stuck into it. The editor was really proud to promote the idea, the concept of having one flag for one great nation. So there was then the government, the Commonwealth government, which was about to be formed. They got their act into gear and they thought, well, gee whiz, this is a positive and popular cause. So the competition became official, and they joined the entries from the Herald Federal Flag competition, the Review of Reviews, into an official competition run by the Commonwealth. 32,823 entries were received, and the judges spent quite a deal of time going through these designs. There was no particular rules apart from the size of your drawing, and your flag could consist of anything that you thought was appropriate. Well, it came out with the Southern Cross, the Commonwealth Star, and the three crosses, St George, St Andrew and St Patrick. And I guess that flag sums it up. 5 people won the design competition with near identical designs. And the Southern Cross gives us our position in the Southern Hemisphere. The Commonwealth Star, which originally had 6 points, one for each colony that became an Australian state. That represents our federation of states. And of course, the Union Jack in the top corner, well, that's a reminder of the principles on which we are based: parliamentary democracy, rule of law, freedom of speech, right of assembly, right of protest. That's all bound up in what was developed and inherited as the Commonwealth of Australia. So the competition itself was publicised, and on the front cover of the Review of Reviews for Australasia, there was only one colour picture, and that was the Australian blue flag. And it says here, Review of Reviews, federal flag adopted as the national flag by the Commonwealth government. So our flag was official right from the start. The first Prime Minister of Australia actually launched the flag with a flag raising over the Royal Exhibition buildings in Melbourne on the main dome. And we hope to see that reenacted again next year, because next year is the 125th anniversary of Australian nationhood, Federation of Australia. And of course, preparations have already started. We have Milton Dick, the Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Yes.
He's got the flag road show going. So the big flag that flies at Parliament House goes right round Australian schools. Any school that wants the big flag, and it takes quite a few people to even unwrap it, because it's very, very large.
Well, John,
the Australian flag, as John has already pointed out, was seen originally as a symbol of unity, and the pity is that it's now used a bit as a symbol of division. The fact that it's appropriated now by, I don't think we should surrender to those people on the far right who want to say that it's exclusively their symbol.
On ABC Radio National, this is Life Matters, and you're hearing from Graham Davison, who's Emeritus Professor of History at Monash University, and John Vaughan, vexillographer, flag designer and historian. We're talking about the Australian flag. John, just back to last week's rallies, I'm interested, are you comfortable with that use, or does it belong to the people? Should everyone use it as they see fit? Are you comfortable with the commercialisation of it? How are you feeling about the way we interact with the flag today?
Look, I'll say this. Under the Flags Act, the Australian national flag is shared equally by all Australians, whatever race, colour, creed, age, sexual orientation, whatever. It doesn't matter your background. It is your flag. You actually own it, and therefore you can march with it or you can protest with it, because it belongs to the people, not the government. The government's logo is the national coat of arms. And of course, when you look at the Australian flag, and I really recommend that national symbols in Prime Minister and Cabinet have a fantastic book, and it's called Australian Flags, and it's a history of the national flag and the other flags of Australia, including in the 2 Indigenous flags. Even Eureka gets a mention and whatever else, and a picture. So, look, it's a matter of getting up to speed with the flag and understanding that it's the flag of the diggers, it's the flag of sport, it's the flag of knowing Australia being known around the world. This flag is universal, and it does represent every part of Australia and every Australian. Graham mentioned Canada. Well, Canada didn't change its flag. It never had a national flag officially. It used a maritime red ensign, and that changed over time too. The Canadian national flag was adopted in 1965, and also the Southern Cross by itself is used by 5 countries that I know of, including Brazil. So, you know, the combination of stars and crosses in our national flag makes our flag particularly distinctive and particularly attractive, with a great track record of being a good and genuine nation, and it's represented by that particular flag. Now, as far as the Republic is concerned, well, Malcolm Turnbull, he came straight out and he said, well, there might be a Republic one day, but he couldn't see the flag changing. So I think there's some wires crossed there, and there may be different views in different states of Australia as to the various marches that took place, the Australia marches, because obviously the one in Victoria was very disruptive in comparison to the other states and territories. Now, National Symbols booklet, that Australian flags, you can get one free of charge from your federal member of parliament or your state senator.
And you can also get a flag as well, can't you, from your local federal member too, as well, from my understanding. Thank you very much to my guests too in that flag discussion. You were hearing from John Vaughan, who's a vexillographer, a flag designer and historian, and also Graham Davison, Emeritus Professor of History at Monash University. And thank